He had spent years preparing his heart for someone perfect, but nothing in his life had prepared him for her. Ayan Malik believed in timing, in destiny, and in the quiet idea that somewhere out there, the right woman existed whole, gentle, and untouched by the chaos of the world. He was not a dreamer in the childish sense, but a man shaped by patience. At 32, his life was steady.
This is SK Stories, where every story reminds us that kindness, empathy, and second chances can appear in the most unexpected moments. If you enjoy stories that inspire the heart, press, like, share this video with someone special, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to SK Stories for more powerful stories.
Marriages that looked perfect from the outside, but hid unbearable emptiness. Ayan didn't want that. He wanted something real, something calm, something that wouldn't leave scars. So he waited. And then, one afternoon, everything he believed about love began to unravel. It happened in a quiet park, the kind of place where time seemed to slow down. Ayan had gone there countless times before, usually to clear his mind or simply sit in silence. But that day was different. That day, he noticed her. She was standing alone near a bench, her posture stiff, her expression distant. There was something unusual about the way she held herself as if she was both present and somewhere far away at the same time. Her name, he would later learn, was Zaren Qureshi. At first glance, she wasn't what he had imagined for himself. She didn't carry the lightness or ease he had always pictured in the woman he would love. There was a heaviness around her, an invisible weight that seemed to follow her every movement. Her eyes, though beautiful, held something deeper, something that felt like pain wrapped in silence. Ayan didn't approach her that day. He simply observed from a distance, feeling an unexplainable pull toward someone who didn't fit into the carefully built idea of right he had carried for so long. Days passed, and then weeks. Yet somehow, their paths kept crossing. Sometimes it was the same park, sometimes a quiet cafe nearby. Each time there was no conversation, just fleeting glances, subtle awareness. It was as if life was quietly pushing them toward each other, waiting for one of them to take the first step. It was Zareen who finally did. One evening, as the sky softened into shades of orange and gold, she sat down on the bench beside him. There was no introduction, no formal greeting, just a quiet presence that spoke louder than words. And when she finally spoke, her voice carried a fragile strength, like someone who had learned to survive even when they didn't want to. Their connection didn't begin with laughter or excitement. It began with silence, with pauses, with moments that felt heavy yet strangely comforting. Ayan soon realized that Zaren wasn't just reserved, she was carrying something broken inside her. Her past was not something she revealed easily. It came in fragments, in half-finished sentences, in the way her voice trembled when certain memories brushed too close to the surface. She had loved once, deeply, completely, and it had left her shattered. Trust had turned into betrayal. Hope had turned into emptiness. And ever since, she had been living not as someone whole, but as someone trying to gather the scattered pieces of herself. Ayan felt something shift inside him. This wasn't the woman he had been waiting for. This wasn't the perfect, untouched love story he had imagined. This was something complicated, something fragile, something that could easily fall apart. And yet, he couldn't walk away, because somewhere between her silences and her brokenness, he saw something real, something more honest than perfection itself. Days turned into months, and slowly their connection deepened. It wasn't easy. Loving Zareen meant learning to be patient in ways Ayan had never experienced before. It meant understanding that some days she would be distant, lost in memories she couldn't escape. It meant accepting that her trust wasn't something freely given, it had to be earned, slowly, carefully, one moment at a time. There were times when Ayan questioned himself. Was this what he had waited for all his life? Was love supposed to feel this heavy? There were nights when he sat alone, wondering if he was trying to fix something that couldn't be fixed. Zareen wasn't just broken, she was afraid of being whole again, afraid that healing would only lead to more pain. And then there were moments that made everything worth it. Moments when she laughed without holding back. Moments when her eyes softened, losing that guarded edge. Moments when she allowed herself to believe, even if just for a second, that she was safe. Those moments became Ion's strength, but healing is never a straight path. One evening, everything changed. Zareen pulled away. Not slowly, not gently, but suddenly, as if something inside her had snapped. She stopped coming to the park. She stopped answering his messages. It was as if she had disappeared into the very silence she had once tried to escape. Ion felt the ground beneath him shift. For the first time, he understood what it meant to lose someone who was never fully yours to begin with. Days passed, filled with uncertainty and unanswered questions. He tried to move on, to return to the calm, predictable life he had once known, but something inside him refused to settle. Because this wasn't just about love anymore. It was about choosing to stay, even when it would be easier to walk away. Finally, after weeks of silence, he found her. She was in the same park where they had first seen each other, sitting on that same bench, her eyes distant once again. But this time, there was something different, something heavier, something more fragile. Ion didn't hesitate. He walked toward her, his heart carrying both fear and determination. What followed wasn't a moment of dramatic reconciliation or instant healing. It was something quieter, something more real. Zareen finally opened up completely, revealing the depth of her fears, the scars she had tried to hide, the part of her that believed she would never be enough for anyone. And in that moment, Ion realized something that changed everything. He had been waiting for the right woman, but maybe the right woman was never meant to be perfect. Maybe she was meant to be real. Maybe she was meant to be someone who needed love not because she was whole, but because she was trying to become whole again. Ion didn't promise to fix her. He didn't offer empty words or unrealistic hope. He simply chose to stay. And sometimes that's the most powerful kind of love. Slowly, gently, things began to change. Not overnight, not in a way that erased the past, but in small, meaningful ways. Zareen started to trust again. Not completely, but enough to take one step forward instead of stepping back. And Ion learned that love isn't about finding someone without flaws. It's about finding someone whose flaws you're willing to understand, whose pain you're willing to stand beside. Their journey wasn't perfect. There were still difficult days, still moments of doubt, still echoes of the past that refused to fade completely. But through it all, they held on not because it was easy, but because it mattered. Because sometimes, the love we wait for isn't the love we need. And sometimes, the person sent into our lives isn't meant to complete us, but to teach us what it truly means to care, to be patient, to stay when everything else says to leave. If this story touched your heart even a little, take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And before this story ends, tell me in the comments, do you believe broken hearts can truly heal with the right person? Because in the end, Ion didn't find the perfect woman he had waited for. He found Zareen, and somehow, that became everything.